6 members of one family have been found shot to death in Amityville, Long Island.
I've seen 6 bright orange color lights, and they're like almost in a diamond or triangle shape.
Up in that direction, like a loud branch breaking, and then we looked, and there was this creature, and it ran down this hill, and then it disappeared.
And dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria.
Welcome to Oregon Paranormal Radio. My name is Casey, and as always, I'm joined by my cohort in crime, Scott.
Yo.
How's it going, Scott? I know you're on kind of a schedule tonight.
Yeah, I'm just getting over a cold, so I apologize if my voice sounds a little Tom Waity tonight.
Tom Waite's pretty awesome, though, so I think we can kind of go with that for a while.
I kind of really dig it. So
let's kind of just jump in.
We're talking to Shawn tonight, huh?
Yeah, our guest tonight is he's a really good friend of ours. He's been a huge supporter of our show for the longest time, and we met Shawn back in 2010 during a paranormal tour down in the Shanghai Tunnels. He showed up with his wife and just had this passion that you don't usually come across in this field. And we kind of forged a really good friendship, and we've been working with him with a lot of the paranormal things. And he's done a lot of really cool, innovative things for us as far as the radio show goes. He actually has taken time out of his schedule to carve us quite a few tombstones that we use for our live events.
And we are not talking about pizzas.
No, they're very elaborate. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and bring Shawn Flye onto the line. He is the founder of the Paranormal Scientific Society Team, which is pretty new. I want to get his input on that, and what kind of drove him into that direction. But Shawn, welcome to the show.
What's up, Shawn?
Thank you very much, you guys. How you guys doing?
We're doing good, man. How are you?
Good. I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Scott? It's been a really long time since we've seen or even talked, since you're on the other side of the world.
Yeah, no, it's been probably since it was one of the cons, I think.
Wasn't it the last one? The last Oregon Ghost Conference?
Yes.
Maybe, and so we're getting close to that again. So wow, that's been almost a year, huh?
We're I think 2 weeks away. Or two or 3 weeks away from the 5th annual one, which is going to be even bigger, ridiculously big.
Is this where I surprise everybody and tell them that I'm flying back for it?
Surprise! I know that's not true.
Surprise! I'm just kidding. That's not happening. Shawn, how you been?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good, actually. I got to admit, I'm very honored to be on your guys' radio show. This is really cool for me.
Awesome.
I want to say it's our honors here too, because I think you're one of our and not just Oregon Paranormal, you're one of the paranormal scenes in around Portland and Oregon and Washington, biggest supporters. And
yes, I met Casey down at the Shanghai Tunnels in 2010, like you guys said, and but that wasn't my first investigation or anything. That was just one of those tours that you just kind of go on, and me and Nancy just happened to go on it, and I had my K2 meter down at the time and a small little full spectrum camera. Wasn't really sure what to expect at the Shanghais. I mean, what you see on TV, but I just thought I'd bring something down there just in case. I literally had no clue that I was going to be down there with like 40 other people. And that made it really hard, because the moment you go down there and you take 3 or 4 steps, you're already stirring up the dirt down there, and the dust. And so to get any sort of video footage or pictures, I mean, you could go ahead and take all the pictures you want, but the moment you stir that place up, oh man, your evidence is going to be extremely what do you that's that C word.
Contaminated.
Contaminated. Thank you. because you're spending hours just looking at one picture, and all you got is these little dust things all over the place. There was one time where my wife was holding the K2 and it went off, but it only went like maybe 2 or 3. Well, the first light's always the power light, but then I think the yellow or orange light went on, and then I was like, okay, well, something went on there, but could it have been ghost or spirit or something, or could it have been, since we're underneath the building, could we be underneath a fear cage? Could there be Romac everywhere up on the ceiling putting this off? So I wasn't really sure, but then I saw as the group passed you guys, I saw you guys get up and kind of do a second guess to see if you captured anything, and I'm not sure if you did or not, but yeah, that was, it was kind of fun to go down there and listen to the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To try to get any EVPs with 40 people talking and try to get pictures, it was impossible.
Yeah, it's a notoriously bad place to get evidence because of all the contamination. You're right.
Right.
Well, that was my first and only time down there. You guys spent many times down there, so you know better than me.
So where did this all start for you? I know you said that you had some experiences overseas during your time in the military, and at what point did you sit down with your wife and say, hey, this is what I want to do? When did this all start for you?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I think some of the popular TV shows kind of threw me in that direction. But to be totally honest with you, it did not start with TAPS, Ghost Hunters, or Ghost Adventures, or even the other obnoxious show, Most Haunted. It actually started. It actually started for me way back in the early 90s, or even earlier than that. I mean, we had In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy, and that was a great show. But then in the early 90s, Henry Winkler came out with Sightings. There was also a show in the 80s. I can't remember if it was the early 80s or the mid 80s, but anyway, somewhere in the 80s, there was a show called That's Incredible, I think the name of the show is.
Yeah, I remember that show.
Okay, I say you're laughing, so you must remember. Well, I believe on that particular show, That's Incredible, there was a guy who somewhere did a EVP recording, and it made that show. I'm pretty certain of. I didn't go back to look at it, but I'm pretty certain it was that show. And he was talking about, oh yeah, these people could have been dead 10,000 years, and we're now just picking up their voices through an audio recorder, or I think a DAT recorder, digital audio tape recorder.
Right.
And I thought, man, that is pretty cool. I had some weird stuff happen to me as a young child, and that's always been in my mind. But I've always been the black sheep, so to speak, of the family. Growing up at my mom and dad's house as a young child, my first encounter, I remember somewhere around 12:30, maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We got a knock on the door. And I was in my bedroom, and I walked down the hallway getting ready to go to the door to answer it, but my mom beat me to it, and she was already there. And I sort of stood at the end of the hallway, kind of the entry of the living room, looking at the door, and I saw my mom, and then my dad showed up, and they got presented with an American flag, all folded with a triangle shape,
Sure.
the traditional way. And being that young, I didn't really know what that was all about. But that very same day, my mom put the flag into my older brother's bedroom. Well, his old bedroom. By then, he was already moved out of the house, so that bedroom was kind of vacant. So they put the flag on top of one of his bookshelves, on the top of the bookshelf. Mm-hmm. And his room was to the right of my bedroom. And I was in my room with the door open, and this skinny military guy, I would say possibly 6 foot, maybe 6'1", very slender, sort of appeared in military garments. And the funny thing is, when he appeared, he did not look. I mean, he was not standing directly in front of me. Yes, he was in the hallway in front of me, but he was like, he had his left side looking at me and his head tilted over and then sort of looked down at me, and then his head turned back and he sort of vanished. I mean, literally, he just kind of dissipated away, and that sort of freaked me out. And I asked my mom who this was, and I'm sure she told me who the flag was for. But
Right.
being that young, I don't think I remembered everything. But that was just the first one. When I met my wife, we stayed at our first apartment at the time, and we both worked night shift at the United Grocers, which is a warehouse. Frozen food warehouse is where I work, and she worked in the general merchandise part of the warehouse, although we were separate buildings, so we never got to see each other. But I actually got off work early one time. We had to be at work like at 3:30, and it wasn't uncommon for me. We always had mandatory overtime, so even though I went to work at 3:30 and expected to get off around 11:30, 12 o'clock, we were always working till like 2 to 3 in the morning, sometimes 12-hour shifts all the time. And we actually got done one night fairly early, so I went home. I got off before my wife, went home. Sightings was kicking on around 11 o'clock or so at night at that time, and I was watching it, and I don't know, it's weird. Maybe watching the show, it put me in a different state of mind. I don't know. What I do know is, about the time that she would normally come home, I heard the apartment door kind of jingle a little bit, but I didn't hear her keys. She has a big keychain, so you'd hear the keys and then the unlocking of the doorknob. Well, I heard the unlocking of the doorknob, but I didn't hear the keys. But I sort of looked over, and I literally saw the door unlock itself, the deadbolt unlocked. So I was watching her, and I was waiting for her to come through the door. I was waiting for the door to open so she could come through. Well, the door didn't open. Nobody came through. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe she went shopping and she has a bunch of grocery bags that she sat down so she could unlock. So I walked over to open the door for her, and, well, there was no one there. I opened the door, and I was like, oh, whoa, that was weird. So I shut the door, I locked it again, and I went back, sat on the couch, and I kept staring at that door lock, the deadbolt. I kept staring at it, and about, I don't know, I'd say a good 10 minutes later, the door unlocked, and sure enough, this time it was her.
Right.
And she looked at me, and she goes, "Why are you so white? You look like you just saw a ghost." And I said, well, to be honest with you, this is what happened. I heard the door jiggle. I looked over. I thought it was you. I saw the deadbolt unlock. So I sat there and watched it, waiting for you to come through the door. You didn't come through the door, so I thought maybe you did some shopping. So what took you so long to open the door? I figured now that you unlocked the door, you're going to pick up the grocery bags, and then you're going to open the door and come through, but you never came through, so I went to open the door for you so you wouldn't have to do it, and you were not there.
Shawn, you realize that was just barometric pressure combined with electrostatic electricity that was in the actual deadlock that caused it to pop open, because there was a slight tilt to the earth at that exact moment, so it wasn't a ghost, you know that, right?
Those frequencies, by the way, that you speak of, Scott, they're coming through right now. I can hear them.
Oh man, that's freaky, man. That's scary on a whole bunch of different levels.
It's weird. I was kind of scared, but what's funny is I probably should not have been as scared as I was at that time, because here I go. I kind of jumped forward a little bit. like I said, I saw an apparition as a young kid when my mom got that flag from a family member, who died in the Vietnam War.
Right.
But the other kicker is we have a family friend by the name of Edward Larry Day. He's a Hollywood makeup artist, and he used to do like Sinister Cinema, and he made a lot of the costumes for like the We Sing videos.
Mm-hmm.
He made the Ninja Turtle costumes. He's done a lot of stuff. So he went to Marshall High School with my oldest brother, Robert. Well, directly across the street from the house I grew up, there was this 2-story house. And the funny thing about it is this house was actually painted black. I've never seen a black house in my life, but this house was painted black. Well, his hobbies were, makeup. He's a makeup artist, and him and my brother and their other friends, they used to make homemade werewolf and vampire movies out of that house. The guy who owned it, a guy named Al, he was a really cool dude. He allowed my brother and their friends to go into that house since it wasn't being rented, to go ahead and make their homemade movies. So, they got the old table saw out, and they started making the traditional looking vampire caskets. And of course, yours truly, they would dress me up like a little Eddie Munster. And so I was a part of some of their homemade movies. So doing a lot of, Larry's also well known for his haunted houses. So being around his makeup and his Halloween props and stuff like that, it wasn't a big deal to me because I've sort of been around it my whole life with my older brother, and we make homemade movies. So being afraid of the dark and stuff wasn't really that big a deal to me. Later, when I was in the military, I went over to Camp Schwab, Okinawa, Japan, which was a battle zone. And that was my first interaction with a Ouija board. One of my roommates that I got within time being over there, he done something to go to the brig. And for his pastime in the brig, he made his own little Ouija board. And when I met him, he had his own little Ouija board. It was made out of glass because, glass is very smooth. So the planchette will glide across it very easily. Now, all the, the alphabet and the sun and the moon was all underneath the glass. So, So
smart.
I told him, oh yeah, we had one of those in our house for the longest time. It was piled up in the games drawer with Life and Monopoly and everything else. There was also the Ouija game that we had. And I go, oh yeah, we got that game. And he kind of told me it's really not a game. And that's where I learned this thing is more than just a Parker Brothers, or actually I think it was maybe it was Parker Brothers. I can't remember. Whoever actually made the Ouija board game.
Milton Bradley, I think, wasn't it?
Milton Bradley.
I think Parker Brothers is correct.
But he told me, he goes, but mine is actually better than those cardboard games. And I go, what makes yours so much better? He goes, well, you see, when you make the board yourself, you're putting all your energy into it, and it will work much better. So me being young and naive, I went with his word. I was like, okay, that sounds like a logical answer to me. So I went with it. It wasn't till, a few months down the road, I brought it up again, and he started to show me how to play it. And this, I remember what people used to say about it back then. So I would barely touch the planchette. And in fact, our planchette at this particular game was a little cocktail glass. It wasn't your actual plastic planchette.
Oh, yeah.
It was just a little glass turned upside down. Yeah, right. And it was very light. And we would, it would slide across, glass on glass. And, he would always start off the session like, is there a spirit willing to speak with us? And then it'd either go to the yes, which is the sun, or no to the moon. And then he also added on there, because not all answers are yes or no, so he also added maybe and not sure on the board. So that way, if the spirit or whatever is supposed to be talking to us, our minds, if the answer is not yes or no and it's confused, maybe it'll go to maybe or not sure. I don't know. But anyway, I noticed that he added those two onto his board. Like I said, he would ask, is there anyone here willing to speak with us? And it'd either go to yes or no, or just stay still. But if it went to yes, he would ask the name, and they'd try to spell out the name. And I was like, God, these spirits are lousy spellers. They can't spell anything out. But he's asking these questions, but they're trying to answer it, and every time they spell something out, it was totally wrong. I mean, I was like, what the heck are they trying to spell here? You got a J and then an E and all of a sudden a D. What the hell? And then it didn't dawn on me like, oh, perhaps, maybe these are Japanese dead soldiers here that don't know English that are trying to make sense of the board. So I thought, well, okay, maybe that could be it, but who knows? I don't know. But that was actually my real start of figuring out, really wanting to get into the paranormal. We had to do fire watch. That's for some of you out there, that means you have 4 hours throughout the night that you stand post and make sure that there's nobody that's going to go into the area and either steal or catch fire or whatever the case may be. You're just basically being security for this particular area. And we were on Camp Schwab, walking on the shores right there with the armored amphibian assault vehicles. And we did have the officer of the day who liked to sneak up on us and make sure that we weren't just sleeping in the 5-ton trucks or a tank or anything. And because you would get yourself in big time trouble if you got caught sleeping on while you're supposed to be fire watch. And I damn well never did anything like that. But he'd like to sneak up on you. And if he did sneak up on you, even though you know who he is, you are supposed to say halt. Who goes there? Then he's supposed to say his name. Then with his hands in the air and his feet spread apart like a starfish, he's supposed to grab his ID with one hand, lay it on the ground, take 10 steps back, and then lay on his stomach. And then while you walk over there and grab his ID and check who he is. A lot of these officers, they make you go through that procedure just to make sure that you know it. And this one particular, well, actually several times, I've heard like footsteps coming up, and I was like, okay, somebody's gonna be sneaking up on me. But they usually sounded like wet boots, like going through the rain or the wet sounding boots. And I'm looking around, and then I'm doing my job, because last thing I said I want to be caught was like accused of being sleeping on the job. So I'm out walking around trying to find the officer of the day who's trying to sneak up on me, but all I hear is boots, and there's nobody around. I got my flashlights, I'm shining right where the noise is coming from. There's nobody around. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty freaky. I did not ever see an apparition there, but I heard a lot of stuff. And usually it's the wet boots that you hear walking up and down the shoreline there of the boat ramp of the amphibian assault machines. And that was weird, because I've heard it more than once. And it actually, to be honest with you, when I first got to the island, they told the other Marines that were there at the time, oh, you get to stand post at this place. Huh? Good luck, man. There's a ghost there or something. And
well, that was my other question, is that has other people experienced that as well there?
The only thing I really heard is that, yeah, there's something down there. We hear boot steps all the time, but we never get to see anything. So that was like the only thing really said. But because of that, all of a sudden this place got pegged of being the haunted spot on the island. And it just happens to be the camp that I'm at. But no, I have not personally seen anything there. Have I heard it? Yes. I tried to, thinking it was my officer of the day, and he was nowhere to be found. So unless he's like Bigfoot and he's extremely good at hide and seek, I don't know. But
Maybe
I do know
multi-dimensional being.
Yeah. So that was pretty freaky with me, and that's what really sort of, those stories really got me into wanting to know more about what happens. Now,
Sure.
my whole family are Lutheran, and my mom, she was like the biggest Bible thumper of the family, but at the same time, she knew there was something else on the other side, or at least she always said she felt there was something else other than if you die, then, you just disintegrate and there's nothing else. The rest of my family, yeah, they think, I'm the black sheep. They think I'm just wasting my time and I'm a weirdo for doing this kind of stuff. But, somebody's got to do this. And
As Jay puts it, we're all freaks and weirdos.
yeah.
Well, but in Jay's case, it's true.
That's true.
He's a good guy. I like Jay.
Hey, let's before we get too far in, let's take a quick break, recalibrate, and when we come back, we'll jump into some more stories and hopefully dive into a little bit of the work that you're doing with P.S.S.T.
Yeah, I kind of want to hear what you're doing with your new group.
Okay.
Cool. We'll be right back after this.
So we're back, Oregon Paranormal Radio. We're talking with Shawn Flye from just about everything. He's at every paranormal conference I've been to. He's investigated a whole bunch of places, and we've just spent a little bit of time talking about, Shawn, how you got into this. And I kind of want to look at what you're doing now and what's going on in the future. You've just started a new group,
Paranormal Scientific Society Team.
Paranormal Scientific Society.
P.S.S.T. Like psst.
Tell me, what are you doing with that?
Well, to be honest with you, it's a new, but it's not a new. The group itself is new, but the name itself is actually my first name. And me and my wife, we were P.S.S.T, Paranormal Scientific Society Team, / Haunted Highway. So yes, Jack Osborne, we are the original Haunted Highway, not you.
It's a good thing Jack Osborne listens to this show.
Yes.
Him and Dan Aykroyd.
That's right.
So yeah, me and my wife, we would drive all over the place. And, we go to Bisbee, Arizona, we go to Sedona, we go all over the place, hitting some of these known spots to be haunted, and we started calling ourselves Haunted Highway. And I had that name a good year and a half before the TV show came out. Can I prove it? No, that's my only problem. Kayla and I, we started back up with a PSST. We want to, instead of just going out trying to get evidence and just trying to do your basic TV show like investigations, we want to put more science and more thought into it and really get down to the roots of this and see what's really going on around us. And that's sort of where I wanted to go with all along. I don't know why I didn't jump on it before, but to be honest with you, I think your group, Oregon Paranormal, that's where I nicknamed you guys. Everybody knows now that I always say Oregon Paranormal sets the standards. And I truly mean by that, because you guys are extremely thorough. You guys are, the way you guys do things, that's exactly the way I want to get things done. I sometimes see what you guys are doing, and I'm like, well, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. But this is one thing about the social media. You know, a couple of years ago, before I met you guys, when me and my wife were out doing this stuff, I had no clue that there was this many people into the paranormal. I didn't, I had no clue that there was this whole paranormal society on Facebook until I joined up, and then eventually it took me a couple of years to gain all you guys as friends. And I was like, this is super cool, because there's a lot of things out there that, I want to know what the truth is. If you listen to the medium who just passed, her name is Sylvia Brown.
Ugh. Yeah.
Okay, but on
Don't blab her. Sylvia Brown is pretty important.
she has a book called, I think, Spirit Guides and Ghosts, and like the difference between all of them. And she said in that book that every time you see these little spark things, or when you take a picture and there's that thing, that white floating thing up there, those are your angels. Okay, well, fortunately for myself, having the background in film and stuff, I know that's just dust. And you talk to a lot of people on investigation, you say, that's just dust, man. And they're like, oh, no, I keep a clean house. Really? Well, when's the last time that you dusted your ceiling and anywhere 7 feet and above your ceiling? Dust and until you set up your DVR system and they walk by and then they can see themselves with all that dust that floats behind them, that's when the reality hits them. And they're like, oh, maybe it was dust.
You know what I try to explain to people, when you're sitting in your couch and, I don't know, it's the middle of the day and you've got that ray of sun coming through the blinds, and
you see it on the windowsill.
Yeah, and it catches.
Casey, we live in Oregon. That never happens.
Hey, I heard from a good source that we might actually see some sun sometime this year. But yeah, I mean, it makes all of those particles that are in the air visible. And I don't know who it was that I was talking to, but it was very recent. And they're in the computer industry, and they spent a lot of time in clean rooms. And they had taken a picture in a clean room, and they actually picked up a dust particle on the camera. And these are in rooms that, I mean, you have to go through a clean room just to get to the main clean room. So I think people, they want so badly to capture things that, you know, they'll go out and they'll buy a piece of equipment before they even read up on how to use the equipment. They're out there in the field and they're using it. And, you know,
and they put a 9-volt battery into it and they turn it on, and all of a sudden they get a hit, and all of a sudden they're a professional investigator.
Right. And, you know, we're guilty of it too, because we really want to use that brand new piece of equipment, but there's got to be a fine line. If you're going to use a piece of equipment, know how to use it, know where the false positives lie with it, know the ins and outs.
Yes. And yeah, to the audience, are you guys out there? Every piece of equipment that we have, almost all of them are EMF detectors in one way or another. And your K2 meter doesn't just pick up EMFs. It also picks up radio waves. So you really got to be careful. And, you know, a good experiment, if you want to learn to use your K2 meter, guys, for $5, go out and buy yourself a couple. For me, I actually bought like 3 of them, but I got 3 compasses. And you put the K2 meter with the compass on top of it, like the K2 meter in the middle. There's a slot where you could shove a coin in there to keep it on. Well, a lot of them come with the toggle switch on the side, and that's what I have. So put your compass on that area where the coin would normally go, and then put another compass on the left about 18 inches away and another compass on the right 18 inches away. And if you get something and your K2 meter goes off, then if you get a radio signal, the K2 will probably go off, but your compasses won't.
Right, because they're only picking up the actual magnetic poles.
And then if you actually are getting an entity, your compasses will slightly turn one way or the other, just slightly. Mm-hmm. And if you got a video camera on all three of those, that's pretty cool. And you can kind of rule things out just with a compass, a $5 compass.
Yeah, we used to use a K2 all the time. I'd say probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And one of the best things that we found the K2 was very useful at was actually tracking down all of the man-made EM fields within any given location, whether you're picking up, like you said, radio frequencies, yes, wireless internet frequencies. The K2 seems to pick up everything. So it was very difficult, I think, for us to continue using it as a form of data collection, aside from the fact that you were able to track down all of the man-made stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and
do you guys still use the triflow meter?
The trifield? Yeah, we do.
Or trifield, sorry, I said triflow.
That's a whole different episode.
Well, and I want to go back to the K2 for a second. I think you're right. Like, it can pick up so many different things, but I think, Casey, going back and looking at the Dallas case, looking at the footage of that recently, I still think that was picking up on something that wasn't necessarily man-made, as we also have other evidence in that specific space.
Right. No, I agree.
So I agree. It's really temperamental, and it's really difficult to get evidence with it. And I would say if that's all you got, then it's not really valid, but it can be helpful in also verifying some of the other claims that are happening in a place.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just for my 2 cents.
No, I totally agree. I think you hit the nail on the head, especially, if you're going to use a K2 meter, make sure you've got several other devices that you're using in conjunction with it to help back up any of the data that you are collecting.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, even if, some of these people out there, they got 2 K2 meters, or they have a K2 meter and a different EMF device, Sometimes if you set them both up, and if one goes off and the other one doesn't, you might be able to rule things out. Or if they both go off, then you can almost calibrate one or the other if you use multiple, and if one goes off and the others don't, or if they all go off and one doesn't. These are just tools for us to use. They're not the almighty ghost detector. In fact, there's no such thing as a ghost detector, to be honest with you. There really isn't.
Right.
I mean, our whole field is so scientifically unproved that literally we cannot say what is a ghost. What is a ghost made out of? Ectoplasm? I don't know. We really don't know. We just go off of a bunch of theories, and that's another part that I really like, because I feel like I'm a part of this to try to help find the truth.
Well, so that was a question I had for you, Shawn, if that's okay. You've been doing this a while now, and you've seen evidence, and you've heard us talk to other people. And this is a question I don't know if I've asked other people, but I was thinking about this about our interview. What do you think this is? What do you think? What's your theory on what a ghost is, or what the paranormal is? Like, I think we all kind of have a different understanding, but I'm wondering, do you have a theory on that?
What a ghost is? Gosh, it's hard because you hear multiple stories from all different sources, all different sides. A ghost is probably an agitated person who's stuck here. That's one of them. Or a ghost is somebody who died who doesn't know that he died, and so he's just living life. like he thinks he's still alive. That's another one I've heard. God, I mean, what a ghost is. I mean, I guess my point is all through.
It's a tough question.
Well,
So
I think it's how you were raised to what you're supposed to believe in. As a young kid, I always had to, every Sunday, our family went to church. Even though I was young, I went to Sunday school while they entered the church. But when you're at church, you're told, if you piss off God, you're going to go to hell and you're going to burn, blah, blah. You think God's really going to make you burn for eternity? I thought that was a devil thing. But I don't know. Do I think there's a guy with a pitchfork and a forked tongue down in the center of Earth? No, not at all. That's just my belief. I'm just saying.
This goes back to, it's just your theory, so it's not like.
I think one of the difficult things, especially when it comes to, what it is we do, going out and investigating and working with different teams and hearing the different hypotheses that are out there, the hypotheses and the theories that are out there. The one problem is that there's no book written on, what way is the right way, because there is really honestly no right way. I think that you look at parapsychology.
Yes.
Parapsychology is, to put it frankly, they've got their stuff more together than the ghost hunting community does.
Oh, yeah.
And they've got 100+ years worth of research that's being ignored.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's because of the TV shows or whatnot, but you take somebody from the parapsychological field and somebody from the ghost hunting field, and they're not even using the same terminology. And I think that there's got to be a fine line where we're all using the same terminology. We don't have to necessarily use the same methods of investigating, because I don't think that at this point we can say that there's a definitive way to investigate. So the question of, what is a ghost or anything, you ask a parapsychologist, and I think they would all, agree that they believe it's the survival of the consciousness of somebody after bodily death. But then you ask perhaps a ghost hunter, and they're going to say, oh, it's somebody who died. It's kind of, if you think about it, the same thing. They're just, again, it comes back to terminology or maybe lack of knowledge on the subject.
Yeah, there has been people who have died on operating table and have been dead for a fairly long time, and then they come back to life. So when they tell the stories, then you got the other science part of that saying, well, could it be the lack of oxygen in their brain making them hallucinate to what they say that they're telling us? And unless you actually died and you went to heaven, you got to see St. Peter's, and then you got to come back and you got to haunt and write on the mirror, the steamy mirror, saying boo and haunt someone, and then came back to life, then I guess you'd be an expert.
Right. And that in and of itself is paranormal, because the doctors don't know fully what's going on when somebody dies and then comes back to life. But clearly there's a pattern there, because a lot of people that have those near-death experiences or actually die on the operating table and then come back, they all have similar stories. And these stories are similar even before the internet existed, to where this kind of information was more readily accessible, meaning that, it wasn't something that was easily made up because they heard the story from somebody else or whatnot. But that I've always found is something that's very interesting, is there are so many things that are unknown.
Yeah, that reminds me of what you're talking. Did you ever see the documentary just not too long ago, maybe within a year or so, about I think they made a movie out of it. It's a little boy who died and came back. Oh gosh,
I know what you're talking about.
15 Minutes in Heaven, or There Is a Heaven, or something like that, where the kid goes he dies and he comes back.
Definitely a heaven name in the title. Yeah,
I haven't seen it, but
it made you think a different way. Yeah, Because it's hard for me to say no, it's not, and yes, it is, because we don't really have a whole lot of proof. We have a lot of theories to go off of, but until we get concrete evidence, that's what I love about this field. But go back to you guys. You guys have a great style, and you guys got your stuff together. You guys really do. It's amazing that you guys don't have a TV show for doing what you do. You guys are extremely good at what you do.
Here's the important part, though, about what we do and how we've gotten to this point is that we've worked with so many other researchers out there, and that's the best part about working with other teams is you can kind of pick and choose techniques that you want to use or implement in your research and with the group. And we've been lucky enough to work with a lot of very, very passionate, very smart people in this field. Michael White has some very, very detailed experiments that really challenge the mind, and Neil McNeil and Ben, and we've got this collective of people that we work with on a regular basis almost, and that's the best part is all of us challenge each other to push that envelope of research just a little bit further every time we all work together. And individually, Scott and I have worked on so many cases together that we've changed our techniques and the way we research and the way we look into the history and the way we approach the clients and everything. And even now we're looking at different ways, not to go into too much detail, but we've got the Oregon Ghost Conference coming up in about 2 weeks. And on that Saturday, myself, Katie, and Jay will be doing a talk, I think in the main hall. And it'll basically be, our approach to how we do a thorough investigation, or how we try to be as thorough as possible, and why it's important to, cover all of that stuff. One of the questions I really wanted to ask you before we conclude and get into the details of the Ghost Conference and plugging all of your stuff is, what direction would you like to see this field go in? Whether it's, more people working together, technology. I mean, we didn't even get into some of the stuff that you've built over the years.
Create, yeah.
That's a good question, and I'm not even sure if I'm the guy to be asked that question.
Or is there anything you'd like to see happen as far as investigative methods or anything? Is there something that you don't think you've seen yet? Is there something that you and Kayla do with P.S.S.T that you haven't seen any other teams do that you could say, hey, why not try this or something?
I'm still learning, even though, you're always learning in this field. And I guess the answer to your question, where does PGI want to go in this field? PGI wants to go to the levels where Oregon Paranormal is. Let's put it, I'll be straight up with you guys. I like your guys' strategies. I like the way you guys do things. And that's the direction I'd like to go with my team.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, I think there's plenty of room, as opposed to other fields and other things, there's plenty of room for more teams doing the right thing out there.
Yes.
I want to thank you for coming on.
Yes.
It's always fun to shoot the breeze with you.
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys have me for your guests. I'm very honored.
Where can
and you're gonna love your Tombstone, your new one coming out?
I can't wait.
Oregon Paranormal Radio Tombstone. This one's really cool. And you guys out there who know Oregon Paranormal, if you've seen that logo where it's the round circle within a circle that says Oregon Paranormal, and then it has the Ouija board planchette. Well, I carved that out on a foam board and routed it out and everything, and in their logo, they have this little skeleton right in the center of the window of the planchette. Well, I found this gear shift knob that was a skeleton, and because it was made out of resin, it was extremely heavy. So I had to sand the back of the skull all the way up, almost up to the jaw line, just so it'd fit in there perfectly.
Wow.
I I drilled out the eyes, and I got these little 3mm red LED lights that's going to light up either on a 9-volt battery or maybe a 12-volt, 4 AA batteries. I haven't decided yet because right now I'm pushing for time, and right now a 9-volt will add the lights for just the skeleton. But I also thought about putting 5mm red lights around the outside circle of Oregon Paranormal and having that light up at the same time.
And you're hoping that we can debut this at the Ghost Conference?
If you want to. I mean, if you want to present it, that's totally up to you. I'm just being creative with my mind, and I liked your logo, so I decided to make another tombstone for you guys.
Sure.
I asked for your permission for me to do this, and I'm going to give it straight to you. It's not going to, but it's going to be. It's looking pretty good.
I can't wait to see it.
So for those of you out there who don't know who Shawn Flye is, the last 2 minutes or whatever exactly of what he explained to us about the tombstone, that is Shawn Flye. He is generous with his time and his efforts and his imagination, and he's dedicated to this field so much so that it's hard to quantify.
Well said.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Shawn.
Well,
it's great to have you here, and it's great to be a friend.
I'm extremely glad to be friends with all of you out there, and I'm very proud to have all you as my friend.
Same here.
But yes, Casey knows this. My mom died a couple Augusts ago, and that was somewhat of a wake-up call for me and my wife. And we're like, you know what? We're not getting younger. Maybe we need to do wills and kind of get some things in line just in case. Well, like, what happens if both of us get in a car accident? We need to set something up, so we just need to get our ducks in a row for the just in case. And the one thing I wanted, my true wish, was if something happened to me and I was on my deathbed and they said I only had a few hours to live, I wanted my last few hours to be for paranormal research. I wanted Oregon Paranormal to be in charge. I wanted every camera, night vision camera, full spectrum camera, thermal camera, any recording devices, everything possible at my bed. Because when I finally die, if there's somehow you guys could capture me leaving, or if I could somehow say something as I'm leaving, if somehow I could make a difference, that's what I wanted.
No pressure.
Well, I was going to say let's not set the appointment for that one yet.
Right.
So, and Shawn, you do make a difference every single day. Every single day.
And I when I told Casey this, he goes, well, and that depends if Oregon Paranormal's still around then. But okay, but that comment sounds like, well, if I'm 70 or 80 or 90 years old. But what happens if tomorrow I get hit by a TriMet bus and I only have a couple hours left? That's when I would need you guys. Anything.
Well, if tomorrow you get hit by a TriMet bus, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it there in time, Shawn. I'm sorry.
And see, that's Scott's dedication right there. Awesome.
I'm out of here. I won't take this abuse anymore.
Before we finish up with the episode, Shawn, where can people find you on the internet if they want to get a hold of you or your team? We
are still building our team right now, so they can still find me at my email, which is S as in Shawn, and then Flye, FLYE, at hotmail.com. Right now, that's the best way to get a hold of me. We are still working on to get an email for our team and a Facebook and Twitter account for our team as well. We're still building that up.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well,
thank you, Shawn.
Yeah, thank you again. And I look forward to chatting with you in 3 weeks at the Ghost Conference.
Great. It'd be great to hook up with you again, you guys.
Definitely.
And once again, thank you very much for having me on your show. I'm very honored for this.
Absolutely, man.
And
it was our pleasure.
Everybody that's listening, thank you for your time to listen to this.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
Talk to you later. Shawn Flye, everybody.
Shawn Flye, the incomparable Shawn Flye.
He is just the nicest guy.
And he's dedicated, and he's got, I mean, his stories, I'm telling you, they're interesting to listen to, and he brings a different, that's why I asked him the question. I wanted to hear what his thoughts were about all these experiences that he's had, you know, and what he thinks it might be. And it's a tough question, but, you know.
Yeah, I think
I'd like to start asking that to other people as well, so.
Yeah,
if you're out there and you're going to be on our show, be ready for that question.
Right. And that specifically goes to you, Dan Aykroyd. So before we end the show, there's a couple things I wanted to get out there. We've got the Oregon Ghost Conference coming up. We've got a presentation on that Saturday on our approach to investigating and what it means to be thorough and why that's important. Katie has a class, I believe that's Saturday, on the history Ouija board, and she's actually going to be used to demonstrations.
Love it.
And then we've got Jay, who's going to be doing another historical presentation. I know they're your favorite. Scott, wake up. Wake up, Scott.
I just sat through Jay's historical.
And then on Sunday, we'll be closing up the show with our annual live Oregon Paranormal Radio show. You won't be there, but Jay will be sitting in your spot. He'll be filling in as guest host. And we have yet to figure out the topic. So
how about how much you miss me?
I think we could fill at least 10 minutes on that.
2 minutes?
2
You missed that? Nah, not really.
We've got another event at the Klondike that'll be coming up in October. We've got the Port Gamble Ghost Conference that's coming up. And I think even before that, we've got the Seattle Crypticon Paranormal Convention that'll be going on. So more details to follow on those last ones. But that's pretty much all we've got going right now.
Can I plug some of the things I'm doing?
Yes.
I'll be here.
That was exciting.
Till maybe June. Okay, thanks, Casey. Thanks for letting me plug.
Hey, anytime.
Anytime.
Awesome. Well, on that note, thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Shawn Flye, once again.